Well, off of yesterday's JOLTS report, we saw again that there are millions of jobs open in America right now. But the concern is that many of the people applying may not have the necessary skills or licensing for a particular job. And then it becomes a concern for the companies who may be looking to bring in some workarounds to that, like getting rid of college degree requirements, downgrading credentials and licenses, and more. A recent opinion piece on governing.com says that might not be the best solution to go with. Marta Zaniewski is Executive Director for the Alliance for Responsible Professional Licensing, and she joins us right now. Marta, great to have you with us. Thanks for a few moments today.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So is it really just this rush to find people for jobs that is pushing this move to change some of these mindsets around licensing and requirements?
I think it's a mix of, rushing to fill jobs. I think it's easy solutions want to be found, obviously, because this is such a pertinent and important issue. But I think for our coalition that is made up of architects, engineers, and certified public accountants, our concern out there is, yes, there is an issue. Yes, there needs to be a workforce development plan. But to your point, where does the public suffer if quality is not ensured? And so for us, looking at the holistic picture of what's happening around the country, we want to caution against, speedy exercises of let's create a silver bullet to fix an issue while also potentially creating an unintended consequence.
How prevalent is it right now in terms of these types of actions going on with companies?
I think what we're seeing around the country in various state houses, and Dan, this began about, I would say, almost 10 years ago, where legislators federally and from a state perspective said, is licensing really needed? Is regulation needed? And, we always ebb and flow on the issue of regulation in the states, and it's either it's overly done or we need more. There's never kind of that happy medium. And so what we've seen over the last 8 to 10 years are proposals that really take everyone, every occupation, every profession into one umbrella and try to create a solution that fits every single occupation out there. And what we're trying to say is for those professions that have direct consumer impact, right? So if I could say for CPAs, you hire a CPA to do an audit of your company, you want to make sure they are qualified to do so and that there's an accountability system attached to that professional with their license and a board that regulates that individual. So what we're trying to say is, let's not create a wholesale silver bullet solution. Let's really pick out for those professions that have that direct impact and what makes sense, right? Like what's practical. And sometimes I think practicality is lost.
So you mentioned something that, is a good component to discuss about this, that there is the corporate side of this, but there is also the governmental and regulatory side of making some of these moves. How much is that, being impacted in state houses across the country right now?
It's very much being impacted, and I think for us, which is what we recently tried to decipher, is exactly to your question, is where's the difference between what business wants and what the government thinks it needs? And that's always a fine balance. So we tried to actually go out to businesses, and we did a survey recently saying, okay, so do you all as business users and owners of these services, do you find the licensing piece very important to who you hire and how you run your business? And we found through our survey that businesses unequivocally value license and the trust in those qualifications that those licenses convey, especially, Dan, I think in today's labor market, where both businesses and consumers are saying, wait, who are we hiring? And the license, I think many people forget, is a minimal qualification standard, right? It's minimally competent folks. And so when we did this survey, fully 92% of our business surveyors agreed that licensing plays a crucial role in accurately assessing these qualifications and making confident hiring decisions. So we want to take that survey back then, to your question, to the legislators and states saying, listen, your businesses in these states value this. They want to see hired professionals with a licensed qualification. And so let's talk about what that modernization looks like while we're trying to fix a workforce issue.
But when you talk about, somebody doing a job that isn't properly licensed, and then there is a negative impact of some kind, there are a variety of different touch points here that really can be, can have a negative impact. The reputation of the company being one of them. Certainly, if somebody was doing a job that they were licensed or not licensed to do, some other type of impact as well. So there are a variety of different negatives that could potentially occur if you have somebody in a specific job that isn't licensed, that maybe is not prepared to do that.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. And to us, it goes beyond the licensing piece goes beyond helping employers hire qualified employees, right? It's, to us, to your point as well, it is intertwined with the overall success of businesses. And I think many times these solutions are haphazardly put together without thinking through potential consequences down the road.
Can some of these issues be mitigated by improved training within companies, especially for when they have employees that are in their roles and they want to move them up to a higher position and they give them that training? Does that potentially help mitigate some of this as we move down the road? Because for a long time, companies were very hesitant to provide training because people would take it and then they would go to someplace else.
Absolutely, and I think in today's world, something we're also looking at is the influence of AI in the workforce. And how do we create that human intellectual training? And how do we make sure that companies are preparing their workforce within their own businesses to be ready to meet clients' needs? And for our professions that are in our coalition, these are highly technical professions. So I think to your question, yes, training is very important. And I think as businesses look at promotions within their companies, that license, I think, is a perfect gateway of saying, you have criteria, you've met the credentials, let's continue to improve your skills through that training process.
How do you think then this plays out, in the years ahead? What are the changes that you think need to be made or the actions that need to be taken?
I think, for us, it's a question, Dan, we ask ourselves all the time within the coalition. We don't rest on our laurels. We want to make sure that as technical professions that serve the public, we are always ensuring that we stay in a modernized licensing system. And for us, that means, we ensure that there's competencies that are met. We ensure that our licensing models are modernized to meet client expectations, to serve the public interest, which is, one of the biggest ethical pieces for these professions, to protect the public in health, safety, and welfare. And so I think as these conversations continue, we just hope that there is a much more nuanced and thoughtful conversation as to what these professions do, how they serve the public, and we are very open to also learning what can we be doing better. Because I think in today's world, the market is changing very quickly, and we need to ensure that we are providing quality services while at the same time making sure that we meet the competencies necessary for the public.
All right. Great to have you with us, Marta. Thank you very much for your time. All the best.
Thank you. Take care.
You got it. Marta Zaniewski, who is Executive Director for the Alliance for Responsible Professional Licensing.